All right, any thoughts on anything that you think we should discuss with the Boise State Athletic Director, Jeramiah Dickey? Text our Cloverdale Plumbing text line. Get that rolling at 208-424-9300 in the Lithia Ford of Boise studio. Welcome our YouTube channel audience to the program. And Jeramiah Dickey, Boise State Athletic Director, the second Tuesday of every month right here at 5 o'clock, where you need to be in that seat in this studio on this show. Jeramiah Dickey, welcome back.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me back.
Super Bowl 60. What are your emotions? Like, they mentioned Boise State. I know you heard that. George Holani. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You've talked about what it's worth, even a mention of your school on a stage like that. Your emotions watching the game as a football fan, but George Holani, we know you know a lot about DeMarcus Lawrence too, having been a Cowboy fan and all that. What was your Super Bowl experience like, JD?
Yeah, well, and I'd also mention a couple of our equipment guys that were on the Seattle staff.
Doug.
Yep. And, when you think about, people being our greatest asset, and that's the first thing that comes to mind. I'm so grateful for, those that represent us and the time that they spent here, and once a Bronco, always a Bronco. And so that means a lot. Obviously, guys, like my kids and I, we follow those teams that have Boise State guys on it. Like my whole household is a Buffalo Bill fan, which just kills me as a Cowboy because of Shakir. And, but that's the type of memory that you want to create. And so to see DeMarcus, who I've met in passing, and everyone speaks very highly in terms of, he comes back in the summers, and that means a lot to our guys, and our guys are following him. And then George, I mean, that was probably my first full class.
Yeah.
It was. And so to give him a hug on senior day, and to see how he's persevered and battled all those injuries through college, and was just a phenomenal player for us. And now to be not just on the team, but contributing. And, it means a lot. It does impact our brand and who we are, and to be able to celebrate those guys. And, it meant that much more to us. We were all Seahawks fans this weekend because of them. And I'm proud of them. And I, hopefully they're listening and they come back this summer, but I think that's really special in terms of the brand and that brotherhood that we've built here.
We hope DeMarcus and George are listening as well.
Yes, I hope so. And I will say also, as a Cowboys fan, holy hell, it takes DeMarcus leaving and he gets one, and I'm happy for him. But it's rough. It's a rough go right now being a Cowboys fan.
We want to dive into that, and just your roots of being a football fan. We know you're from Texas. We've never even asked you if you grew up playing sports. We want to get down those rabbit holes too eventually, but
the one thing I want to know before you move on, because there's a couple other Super Bowl questions here. How does Jeramiah Dickey take in the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Sunday, really, it was a busy weekend. You've seen me put it out there on social. We had multiple events. My daughter was in the Spud Classic, I think it's called. It was in the indoor facility, which was awesome. I mean, there was thousands of people, and it's a club volleyball event. And so they had, these courts out on our indoor turf. And so there was that on Sunday. I had church on Sunday, and then I took the family to the Harlem Globetrotters, which now with being under us, that's one of our events. And it was really cool to, see people show up. And obviously the timing of that, I know they had an event the night before, and but we got home probably towards the end of the second quarter. We were following on the phone, and so we got home. We did our own little Super Bowl party. I just wanted to stay at home. Every day ends in Y right now, and I'm exhausted. So, sometimes it's just nice to hang out, sit on the couch, and not have to, shake hands and kiss babies, I guess. So,
as an athletic director, when the time is right, whether it's waiting for a face-to-face meeting or a phone call, do you reach out to DeMarcus? Do you reach out to George? The answer is yes. So the process in terms of how you do that, because your number one job is to cultivate and continue these relationships that you've already built, whether that leads to friendship or finances, it doesn't matter. Shake some hands, kiss some babies. How do you handle those two moving forward?
I've already reached out to DeMarcus before, and a lot of these guys, like, look, guys, I get it. I get hundreds of texts a day, and I didn't have the personal relationship with him. He wasn't here. I mean, he wasn't here when I was here.
Sure.
But
and he had very few personal
same
relationships
thing with Kellen, and any guy that when Shaq comes back through town, I try to see him because I want them to know they always have a home here. And so I reach out whether they respond or not, and I don't take offense. Like Kellen is so busy and he'll respond, and just really proud of how they represent us. I mean, I look at the job Kellen did this year, and I'm not sure many people thought the Saints could win a game. And you see the type of coach he is, and it just makes you so proud. And so, yeah, I reached out to him. I reached out to the general manager, John Snyder, a great guy.
Johnny stalked him in your press box one day.
Him and his wife, Tracy.
Yeah.
Never forget the wife's name, by the way.
That's right. And she's awesome. Their son Jack's here. And, so there were a lot of connections, and I try to connect as much as I possibly can with those guys.
Jeramiah Dickey, let's get to know you a little bit on the surface, because you can't talk about the Pac-12 stuff that we want to ask you about. Right. There's NDAs and what.
Talk about some of it, but we
can get to some of that in a little bit. But just your roots of being a football fan come from where I would imagine most ADs grew up being, diehard sports fan. You, for whatever reason, you wanted to stay in competition in athletics.
Yeah.
What's your story?
So
football.
From the day I was born, I mean, to the announcement in the newspaper, my dad was a huge Cowboys fan, and it said, born Jeramiah Dickey, new Cowboys fan.
Did it really?
So
seriously, it did.
It absolutely did. And there's pictures of me and UT stuff as a newborn. So
and you were born in Dallas, or
I was born in El Paso.
That's
born
right,
and raised in El Paso.
That's right. That's right.
So I grew up in a sport family. It was always important to us, and maybe too much so in terms of our, my identity growing up. But we watched every Sunday. You would watch the Cowboys, and so those were some of my first memories. And then obviously we had the Sun Bowl. I had UTEP. I remember when Coach Cutter was there, and and Bob Soul was the head coach, and UTEP went to a bowl game. And UTEP hasn't had a tradition of success like we have here, and that's not an indictment. I love the Miners because my grandfather was a team doctor.
Tim Hardaway, that was probably your hero.
Antonio Davis, Marlon Maxey, if you remember him. I mean, there were so many great players that went through there, and just really appreciated those memories and the experience with my dad, my uncle, my grandmother, my mom. I mean, that's what we did on Saturdays. And so grew up watching and loving sport, played everything growing up. And then when I got to high school, which not a lot of people know this, you had to go. I was at a new high school, so there was only freshmen, sophomores, and I had to go out for the football team, and everyone kind of went out, and they had multiple teams because all these schools converged as they were building up this high school. And long story short, I was born with a hole in my heart, and we were told it had closed, and something that I didn't even really realize. And I was getting my physical, and a trainer of all people said, "I think I hear a murmur." And so I ended up having to go to a cardiologist, and I missed like the first 6 weeks of football. And when I got back, ultimately everything was fine. And you got to the uncomfortable place of like whether I could play again or not. And I probably should slow down on coffee or go to a cardiologist to check my heart.
Yeah.
But all to say, when I got back, I had this conversation with my basketball coach, and hindsight's everything. And I don't blame him or anyone else, but he said, if you go out for football, it's going to be really hard for you to play basketball. And if you stay in basketball, you will start. And
varsity, like
we had two, we just had freshmen and JV at that point. And so I was solid. Probably my better sport was basketball. Obviously I was in El Paso. I was a big kid and was one of the taller kids.
Yep.
So that was a competitive advantage. And a lot of my friends played basketball. And so at that point in time, I'm not blaming it. Like
you were a basketball guy?
I was a basketball guy. And
so,
in high school, after, I played football, and soccer and baseball. I did everything. And, but I ended up playing basketball in high school, and, team captain a couple years,
all the way through.
And I was a second graduating class. So, we had a good run, one district, I think every year I was there. And, we would always get to those, divisional playoffs or whatever they call them. And you'd have to play the Midland Odessa teams or, and that was a different level.
Yeah.
And that was honestly, I remember as a junior, and you always have this dream, like, you're going to go play, in college.
Oh, yeah.
I remember playing a team, I believe it was Midland High, and they had like 4 guys that played D1.
Midland, that's Odessa Permian, right? Or is that
they have Midland, they have Permian, they have Midland Lee. You know, they have a handful of schools. All to say, when we went to play them, I mean, we just got curb stomped, and then you realize the difference between like high school talent and it's something I talk to our student athletes about. Like, they're 1%ers of the 1%. You know, I was a solid high school kid.
I was going to ask you, how would you describe your game? Your style?
Oh, complete fundamentals. You know, not surprising. Like, I was probably a jerk on the court and things I regret to this day. But I was the guy. You know, I was probably like an RJ Keene, but not a D1 athlete. You know, okay. I was the guy who I knew every play. I knew where everyone was supposed to be. I was the guy that usually guarded the best player. I could rebound. I could screen. I
Team
could do
captain,
all that. Yeah, but
okay.
I was not, I was always on the plus side. When you look at RJ, like, 2 points, but has 12 boards and 5 assists. Like, that was me, but high school. I'm not trying to say I'm like RJ, but you realize at that point, like, and not that my parents you can go play in college, but when you start getting offers and it's NAIA and those type of things, I wanted to go to Texas. I grew up in a Texas family, and the experience, and I had played sport.
You want to go to the big Texas school? And
well, my grandmother went there. My grandfather went there. My uncle went there. My great grandmother lived there. Okay. My aunt lived there. I grew up in a Texas family. And so it was Texas or Texas. My mom was not going to allow me to stay home. And I'm grateful for that. And the rest is history. It was a great experience, and I have no regrets.
What about, we talk about basketball, but like your fandom, was the NBA a big deal in the Dickey house? Major League Baseball, like, all sports, not just football. We're learning this now. You love football, but also basketball. Was there any room on the plate for anything else? Someone suggested, maybe he played lacrosse, and we thought, no way.
I'm not even sure lacrosse. I don't even think we had lacrosse.
And not in Texas,
No, it was, it was the main 3 sports growing up, and mainly football and basketball. And, my dad was a huge Larry Bird fan, and back in the day, you only had the Cowboys were on, and the Lakers and Celtics, or Celtics and Sixers. It was always those teams, and that's what you would watch on Sunday. So I am a huge fan of the old school NBA. I'm not, quite honestly, I'm not a fan of NBA. I don't watch it. We try to create experiences for our kids, and we'll go to a game if we can. And, but it's a completely different game. I'm more old school, and I liked, my dad will send me all these videos of, Kurt Rambis and Larry Bird, throwing haymakers.
I love those, man.
And they would get a technical and like go back in the game. Like, it wasn't even it's like, that was just part of the game. If you went up for a layup, know that you were going to be taken out. And there was something special about that. But
there was.
I liked that part, and I'm not into all the flopping and just high scoring games. Like, I liked the defensive side. I liked the strategy and how those guys played back in the day. And, we used to have at UTEP, because of Tim Hardaway, the Golden State Warriors would always come to the Don Haskins Center now.
Oh, they would?
And they would play Utah. And I remember as a kid meeting, shaking Karl Malone's hand. I have a shoe of his. Back in the day, they had Converse, and it was their team colors, right? No one really had a shoe. Jordan had his shoe. Everyone had Converse. And so I have a size like 15 Converse Utah Jazz shoe that Karl Malone signed, and has the other one.
Nice.
I got to meet Manute Bol, John Stockton, the legends, Chris Mullen and Tim Hardaway, obviously would
Run TMC.
So.
That team. Yeah.
Oh, that's what I would collect cards. And so now my kids are bringing out all my old cards. And,
they are. They must love that.
Oh, it's awesome.
When I would imagine that 90% of the sporting events you go to, even then, and certainly now, you're on the clock. You're working. You're raising hands, kissing babies, raising funds. Give me a couple of examples of you, because you said you like to create experiences for your kids.
Yeah.
What are your 1 or 2 favorite fandom moments, sitting in the stands with a purchase ticket, box of popcorn, no work responsibilities, and this happened that you'll never forget? What are the fan moments for you and your family? Maybe a first Cowboys game, or
specifically for me, and I was not married at this time. I was working at UTEP, and some buddies and I, we had an RV, and I don't remember how we got this RV, and it was totally,
illegal.
Probably illegal that we had this RV, and we drove from El Paso to Pasadena and went to the Rose Bowl with Vince Young and
the USC Texas Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
You did that?
I was sitting 40-yard line and sat with a buddy, and I'll never forget it. And hopefully I'll send this to him.
Road tripping
one
with
of my
your buddies.
best friends, Mike Lopez, lives in El Paso, and he's a huge Penn State guy, and obviously I was a Texas guy, and he had a ticket, and I had about $1,500 in cash that I'd saved up, and I was walking the stadium trying to buy a ticket.
So you guys did this whole trip without having tickets beforehand?
We went for an experience. We had a friend that had a house in Pasadena, and it was just, I mean, we were young and dumb, so it was just a party. And UTEP, actually, we had gone to a bowl game that year, but it was earlier, and so we jumped in a car at like 9:00 at night, went all night, drove, played. I mean, it was insane. I can't even. It's
those
not appropriate to tell the stories from that trip, but all to say we get there, and I'll never forget my buddy Mike said, JD, you're a UT guy, and I had just graduated a few years earlier, and he said, I want you to have this ticket, and and you can go, and I'll stay with our other friends who didn't have tickets. And it just meant a lot to me.
So you went by yourself?
I had another buddy.
Okay.
Like, we only had 2 tickets out of like the 10 people that went.
Okay.
And we were all going to try to buy them. We couldn't find them. And this was at the time they started to print extra tickets and sell them, and they were all fake. You're in line, and you're watching people go up to the line, and they would get pulled out because they had a fake ticket, and they're dropping $1,000+. And back in the day, I mean, that's even huge. Now it's a lot. Yeah.
That's like the best game ever, too.
Correct.
Biggest game ever. Totally hyped. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a couple of pictures from that game, and that was a good experience. And I'll never forget Mike doing that. When I was at Akron, we played at Penn State, and I sent him a field pass and a ticket. He couldn't make it.
Wow.
But I tried to repay him to create an experience for him. But so for me personally, that was something that meant a lot. Like growing up in a Texas family,
and potentially greatest. I mean, no offense to the Fiesta Bowl, but greatest game ever played, probably.
Well, and I would say the year before that, we did the same thing. It was just the Rose Bowl at that point. But if you remember, Texas played Michigan
the year before,
and I was also at that game. I was sick as a dog.
You were at that game?
That game too. So back to back I went. And then I started to get in the industry, and it's most events I've been to, it's due to the job. I would say for my family, and it's probably not together. It's one-offs. I was able to take the kids when we were at Baylor. We went to a Cowboys game, and that was their first game. And then I was able to take this year when we played at Air Force. If you remember, we stayed in Denver. And I always try to take a kid with me just so they can have the experience, and they don't get to see me a lot. And I took my son to his first Major League Baseball game. We went to the Rockies, and it was awesome, and it worked out because
beautiful park.
Yep. Yeah, it was great. There were a lot of people there because oh my God, it's on the tip of my tongue now. Trout was about to hit his, I forget, was it 300th home run or
makes sense.
He was doing something.
Some
and
type
so
of
like it was
there.
packed, and the Rockies were horrible.
Yeah.
But the experience was great. And so like those things are important to me. And, when they come on the road, I try to create experiences around it because most of my life is tied into this job. Fortunately, unfortunately, whatever. It's as my wife says, I've chosen this. And so I try to create.
She says that to you?
Yeah.
Honey, you've chosen this. Stop bitching.
I can't go home and vent or complain because it's like, well, this is what you wanted to do. So, but I try to create as many experiences for them as I possibly can. And, and usually it's around a game. Sometimes it's at a game, but it's important. I want them guys, like when they're gone, and you only have so much time with them. I want them to know that I wasn't doing this for money or fame or, that there was a greater purpose and that I gave 100% to them and to this job and to my family in general and my faith. And you try to live that out in action. And I hope I'm creating enough memories for them to, at some point when they have kids that they maybe speak highly of me, of like my dad tried. And that's important to me.
I love that. All right. One official question before we get you out of here. Obviously, the Canzano report today, he's got way better sources than I do. And I know you can't talk about it, but the timing, can we get it or do we expect a schedule this week? And what can you say about the new Pac-12 football schedule?
Yeah, I would say we expect a schedule soon. We've been working
this
hard
week?
at it. I won't say when. But I would expect it sooner than later. There's been a lot of work. We had Pac-12 meetings a few weeks ago, and so I was in San Ramon, and really grateful for Teresa and all the ADs and everyone just coming together. I mean, when you're building a conference like we are with the brand that it has and with the expectations that we all have, it's just been awesome and a great learning experience for me. And there's so much that you think, all right, you're going to this conference. Like, we are literally talking about everything from officials to how are we going to do the football schedule? How are we going to do the basketball schedules? Where are we going to host, our championships? I mean, there's just so many moving pieces, and what I can assure everyone is we are making progress. It is aligning, not perfectly, but we are in such a great position, and I feel like have better positioned ourselves because we know what the CFP is doing, and we know what the Power 4, Power 2 is doing in terms of giving us access. I feel with the teams we have and the new coaches coming in, I feel like we are in a great position for our champion to represent the G6 in the CFP.
Jeramiah Dickey, that's Ask the AD with JD. It's the second Tuesday of every month, and you got a million things to do. We appreciate your time as always. We'll let you get to them, JD. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity and look forward to doing this again. I can't believe it's February. Thank you, Bronco Nation. Hope to see everyone Friday night, and go Broncos.
Good stuff. Prater on the ball game. KTIK, the ticket.
From the Beacon Plumbing Traffic Studio, this is Ticket Traffic.